Robert Burrich is suing his ex-fiancée, Carla Jones, for money loaned and forged checks. Carla is countersuing, claiming Robert made false accusations to her probation officer.
Mr. Burrich, Miss Jones used to be your living girlfriend?
She was my fiancée.
And according to your complaint, she owes you some money. First for a loan, for insurance, well over a year ago. And then you claim that at some point she forged some checks.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you claim she's got some of your personal property.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Jones says none of them were loans. She did, in fact, sign your name to checks. You knew about that. You did not report those forged checks, according to you, when you found out about them. But you continued to live together as a couple. But when you broke up, you, according to you, called her parole officer. You're on parole for something?
I'm off now.
And you called her parole officer to report the forged checks. Is that right?
Yes.
Why'd you do that for?
Because she was forging checks while on parole, and
No, look at me, look at me.
It was a violation.
Let's get a timeline.
It's a violation.
Mr. Burrich, listen to me. Don't interrupt me when I'm speaking.
Excuse me.
According to you, it was in October of 2004 that you found out that she had signed your name to some checks.
Yes.
How much in total were the checks that she signed?
$2,900.
And what were they for?
They were made out to her, signed by her, and cashed by her, and deposited to her account.
Okay. Now, when did you find out about these checks? So was that in October?
It was after she moved out in October.
So after you found out about these forged checks, how long did it take you to call her parole officer?
It took me until March of 2005.
Okay. Let's go. Checks, $2,900 worth.
No, nothing was stolen from him. No forged checks. We would pay our bills together. I would tally up how much utilities were or groceries, and I'd say, I need X amount of dollars. And he'd say, okay, go ahead and get a check, write it for that, deposit it in there, and pay the bills. And I'd
deposit it where?
Into my checking account. I'd always call him at work, or he would be home when we did it, and he would say, go put that in your checking account and then pay the bills, because I paid everything online.
What do you want parole for? Anything to do with checks?
I'm not on parole. I was on probation.
Probation, anything having to do with checks?
No, it was for a DUI.
Oh. How long were you living together?
About 2.5 years.
Who paid the bills, sir?
The arrangement was that I paid the rent because it was a considerable amount of money, and she picked up the tab for the utilities and the food.
What precipitated your leaving in October of 2004?
Well, the relationship was kind of going sour, and in August of 2004, we had been going to some counseling to see if we could work through some of the issues. And I realized in my heart that it just wasn't going to work out for me, that I wasn't going to be able to go through with the relationship. And of course, he was very upset. And I told him at the end of the lease, which was November 1st of 2004, that I'd be moving out by then and getting my own place.
Robert Burrich says ex-fiancée Carla Jones stole money by forging his check, countersuing, claiming Robert made false accusations to her probation officer.
Okay. When for the first time, Ms. Jones, did the plaintiff confront you about these checks?
Towards the end of the year after I had moved out. We were still talking to each other, and he would come over sometimes on the weekends, and I just felt really sorry for him.
Just tell me what he said to you about the checks.
He called me on the phone close to Christmas. I said I didn't want to see him anymore. I said I don't want you coming over anymore. I don't want to see you at all. It's done. I don't even want to be friends with you. And that's when he threatened he was going to go to the police station and tell them that I forged these checks while we were together. And I said, you know, that's a lie. How can you go tell a lie like that? And he says, I can say whatever I want. And then in March, I finally just told him, I said, I can't see you anymore. We're kind of seeing each other on and off, on and off. Well, he told me he was going to go to the police and do this. So I guess the next day, which was March 14th.
So the first time he spoke to you about it was in December of 2004.
Threatening to do this.
On what date did you contact her probation officer?
It was the 15th of March.
What happened between December and March, sir?
I was investigating this.
You already knew about it, and you confronted her with them. And if you had been concerned that she had forged your name to checks and you felt that it was the right thing to do to notify her probation officer, why didn't you do it in December or January or February?
I was hesitant. I wanted the relationship to go on. During the counseling sessions, the counselor asked me if I loved her, and I said yes, and the counselor asked her, did she love me? And she said she didn't know, and the counselor said, did you love him when you took that engagement ring? And she said, I don't know. And I wanted this relationship to last. It was very important to me. She was very important to me. And I figured that the less waves, the better the chances of the relationship working.
But it didn't work, sir.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. And the response to it not working is not to behave in a retaliatory way.
That's right.
The response to it not working is saying, you went to counseling, she didn't deceive you. She said, we'll go to counseling, we'll see if we can get it to work. And she was being honest. She said, I don't know my feelings. She wasn't trying to be hurtful. If she wanted to be hurtful, she wouldn't have gone to counseling with you.
She deceived me when she accepted the engagement ring.
No, you know, you're talking about there's hard evidence and then there's soft evidence. You know, the divorce rate in this country is 52%. Now, all of those people who divorce, when they sit back, you know, a year later, 6 months later, 5 years later, they say, gee, I wonder if I really loved him. I wonder if I really loved her when I walked down the aisle. You know, or was it something else? It was, you got to get married, or, you know, I fell in love with the beautiful face, or I fell in love with the bank account, whatever it was. Was it really him? I'm really not sure. You know, I really don't know in my heart anymore. That's what people say to themselves.
It was the bank account.
Well, it's all a package. You know, she's an attractive lady, right?
Yes, she is.
She's a very attractive lady, well-spoken. Do you think that if she was an unattractive lady and not well-spoken, you would have been attracted to her? No. You may have gotten to know her better and said, gee, she's got a wonderful soul. But what attracted you to her initially was she's a pretty lady, she seems intelligent, and she's well-spoken, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Part of your package is that you had some dough. That's it. You just have to accept that. And you know, I'm not such a genius that I figured this out myself, because Donald Trump's wife was interviewed recently, and they said to her, would you be married to him if he wasn't Donald Trump, if he wasn't who he is? And she said, you think he'd be married to me if I didn't look like this? Do yourself a big favor. Put a period. It didn't work out. You both gave it your best shot. You should not have called a probation officer. It was a nasty thing to do. And you should not have waited to see the result of this counseling before you decided that what she did was criminal, because then I find your motives suspect.
The reason we actually separated was in August. I told her that her drinking had become a problem, and if she didn't stop drinking, we were not going to renew the lease and live together.
But even after that, you went to counseling with her, because according to you, you loved her.
I did love her.
What I'm telling you is, it didn't work out. That's very sad. Looks like a nice guy. I hope you find another nice one.
She's engaged to another guy already.
Well, then you should look up and say, thank you, God, I didn't make a mistake. Right? Instead of suing her. The case is dismissed, sir. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Bourbon McDaniel is suing her daughter, Glenda Julius, for the cost of her granddaughter's funeral. Glenda says her mother is heartless.
Miss McDaniel, the defendant is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint is really a simple one, and your complaint is that you made 2 loans to your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And she has not paid you back. Your daughter says that these were not loans, they were really gifts. But the matter becomes more complicated because of the nature of the loans that you claim to your daughter. Miss Julius, you had a daughter who was murdered.
Yes, ma'am.
When was she murdered?
September 24th. She was found dead in her room.
In your home?
In our home.
Has the perpetrator of that murder ever been found?
There are 3 people apprehended as of right now for first-degree murder.
How old was your daughter? According to you, Miss McDaniel, you went to where your daughter was living, and your daughter did not have money for a burial.
That's right.
You agreed to loan her the money for the burial.
Yes, ma'am.
Subsequently, your daughter, who was not happy staying in the same house where her daughter was murdered, which is quite understandable because people had not been apprehended at that time, asked if she could relocate. And you agreed to loan her some money.
Yes, ma'am.
So that she could relocate. What was the extent of those 2 sums of money? The funeral was how much?
$4,582.27.
And how much did you advance your daughter to relocate?
$1,487.68.
The matter becomes more complicated because at some point, Ms. Julius, you ascertained that there was a crime victims compensation that you could apply for.
The DA
The DA
from Carroll County
told you what?
told me that there was a victims fund relief.
And what was it for?
It was for expenses for Jessica's death. And I have been making payments.
Just a second. Expenses for Jessica's death,
Yes.
which included her burial.
Which my mother gave as a gift.
Listen to me very carefully.
Which included, yes.
So the state of Tennessee had a fund which provided for the survivors of victims of violent crime to give them money so that they could pay for burial
Yes.
and other related expenses.
Yes.
You applied for that
Yes.
and you got a check.
Yes.
How much was the check?
One was $5,300 and the other one was $1,024.
Can I see the paperwork
Yes.
surrounding those two checks, please?
There was a few gas expenses.
Can I see the paperwork for the...
This is exactly what
Bert,
was
I'll take a
issued,
look
but
at
I
it.
have more different. I have receipts to where I have been paying my mother.
Just a second. They paid you $5,307.27 for the funeral. And then there were other related expenses, moving expenses. Are you telling me that you have proof that you gave some of this money to your mother?
Yes, I have.
I'd like to see it, please.
I have receipts. Here, this is it for money orders. She told me that her payments were 70 and 40. I talked to my sister Gail that's standing next to her over the telephone. She was in California. I talked to her and she said, "Have you been giving her money?" I said, "Yeah." She told me 70 and 40 on her credit cards. And that's exactly, I've been giving her a little bit more.
Well, I see what you're talking about. You gave her $30, $40.
And it started on 11/3, excuse me,
I understand that, but these are very small amounts of money. When did you get the check from the state?
in April. She told me it was on credit cards, and as long as I was helping her out, there was no lump sum that I was supposed to give her. She knew I would have to go home. I have a headstone to purchase for my daughter, which is $910, and I'm working at a minimum wage job. I moved out because it was so unbearable to live with her in her house.
Let's go back a second. You got this money, which is about $6,500. What did you do with it?
I've been living on it, and also I have money set aside to buy Jessica's stone and money set aside to go home.
Well,
because
so
I cannot live.
Just a second. You just told me that the stone is $900.
$910.
Fine. And did you order it?
I've already talked to... Yes.
Don't play with
Yes.
it. Did you pay for it?
Not as of yet.
Why not?
Because she started this lawsuit.
What's the name of the company that's going to do the stone?
Memorial Gardens.
Well, you certainly have $900 for the stone because you had got $6,500. And my problem with you, Miss Julius, is because this is not a very difficult case. Whether your mother said to you, as you allege in your answer, it's the least I can do to give you the money for the funeral, right? That's what she alleges you said to her, or not. The good people of the state of Tennessee did not provide this money for you to live on. The good people of the state of Tennessee wanted to ensure that your daughter had an appropriate burial. So you cannot take their money and do what you want with it. You have to take their money and pay for her funeral. That's what it was earmarked for by the state. Because whether you and your mother, according to you, you colluded to defraud the state by her signing papers that said she's going to pay me back, and she really didn't mean that you were going to pay her back, that's a fraud on the state. I can't sanction that. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm working in a dry cleaners.
What
I'm having trouble dealing with the public.
What kind of work did you do before your daughter's death?
I was working in a convenience store, third shift.
Your mother paid for the funeral. According to the claim that you put into the criminal injuries compensation claim for Jessica Dawn Julius, the funeral was $5,307.27. That's what you told the state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the funeral was actually $45.82?
The difference was donations from the school where Jessica went.
What?
I have a paper that states each and every one that gave donation to funeral.
Can I see it, please?
Yes.
The family that Jessica was, Lisa Stevens' family, were there and willing, and the whole town was willing to help out with this. My mother is the one that wanted me to move. I left everything I owned.
Listen to me. I'm not talking about the moving. I'm talking about the fact that you cannot take this money and live on it. I have to make a judgment whether the person who actually paid for the funeral, and that's your mother, or you who did not pay for the funeral, are the rightful recipients of this money from the state, which is earmarked for your daughter's burial expenses. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And there were some very nice people from the town who also sent checks in for the funeral. But that's not the issue. The issue really is a very simple one. Whether your mother, at the time that your daughter died, and I believe that she probably did, say to you, this is a terrible time. I don't want you to worry about the funeral. I'll take care of it. Because that's what a parent does. But then when you found out that there was a possibility, because you said that the district attorney told you that there was a fund, that was after your daughter was buried, correct?
Yes.
So after your mother laid out that money, and probably would not have sought to recoup it because you have limited circumstances, that'd be a fair statement. But after she found out that you were going to get this money from the state for the funeral, the right thing for you to do was to give it back to her.
I've been giving her close to $1,500.
No. That
so
may
far.
have been fine, Miss Julius, giving her $30, giving her $70, until you got $6,500. Once you got $6,500, you had to say, Mom, clean up the credit card, pay it off, because that's what this check was supposed to be used for.
Yes,
Do we
ma'am.
understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Let's not pursue this any further. Your family has had sufficient amount of sadness to last for a lifetime. So you have the money, and even if your mother is awarded the $5,000, you still have money left over for the headstone, and then some. Right? Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Wayne Otis claims website owner Jamila Donaldson posted his picture on her website.
Mr. Otis, it is your claim that the defendant who runs a website embarrassed you on her website, and you want to be compensated.
Yes.
Ms. Donaldson said that, well, she didn't really embarrass you on the website. She's going to explain to me what the website is all about, but she said whether or not you were embarrassed, she is protected by the Constitution of the United States. That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about this website.
But you want to know what happened that day, or how did I get to the website?
Well, why don't, if you don't really understand it, I'll let Ms. Donaldson explain the website to me.
Okay. The website is called hotghettomess.com. hotghettomess.com.
And what is its function?
Well, I started about a year and a half ago, and the function was I was sort of looking at the images that were coming out of largely the African-American community, and I felt like we were bombarded with these negative images, you know, this glamorization of thug life and thug living, the degradation of women, and just this obsession with all that is low and ghetto. So I thought that I would do the website as sort of a social commentary to say that this is not what we're supposed to be doing. We should not be promulgating these images.
Sounds like a laudable goal.
Yes, thank you. And so the website basically consists of people sending in pictures. And what I do is try to take a lot of images and put them in a context. I think we, in the media, and especially young people with the videos and the movies, we see these images all the time, but no one puts into context and says, this is not good. This is not
Give me
positive.
an example.
I don't have anyone. Oh, well, yes. Okay, here's one.
All right, let me see it.
But I'll also say that in addition to showing hot ghetto mess, I counter that with not ghetto and images that we should strive to be more like. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bird. Here's some of the not ghetto. I sort of counter and try to give a balance. And I also have lyrics on there, lyrics that are being put out, and I contrast positive and negative lyrics. I do movies.
I got it. Just a second.
Sorry, I also have a mission statement.
Just a second.
Okay.
Just a second. I don't want to read your mission statement.
Okay, it's just posted on the website
I
so
see.
people know what I'm doing.
Okay. It's really a positive message that you're trying to present by showing Good examples of behavior, bad examples of behavior, good examples of images, bad examples of images. You don't select the pictures with the exception of the fact that people send in pictures to you and you put them on the website and say, you're free to comment.
Right.
And somebody sent you in his picture.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did they get the picture from?
It was this online site we have in school. I'm a college student, and it's called Facebook. What it is, it's like a directory of students that go to various colleges.
So you sat for a photograph or submitted a photograph to this book, and from that book, somebody took out the picture and sent it to the defendant.
Yes.
So let me see your page that you're complaining about.
This right here is the profile of myself, and these right here are like the categories, like the people that were centered around mine. So I don't see anything positive around
Well,
those.
let me just see what yours is.
Okay. And it's a little log up there where they get to comment about the pictures.
So she posted this photograph,
Yes.
right? Well, what are you complaining about?
Because she posted my photograph with her company logo on it as if it was her picture. I don't belong on that picture with those people. I mean, look at the category that I'm in.
What category are you in?
I'm in a category called Playboys.
Mr. Rodas,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't it a bad picture? It's a very nice likeness, very sexy as a matter of fact.
Thank